This reading comes from the Facts for the People of the Free States, issued by the American Anti-Slavery Society around 1846, a pamphlet preserved in the Library of Congress archives. The first account speaks of a church that sold a man, a brother, for their communion table. The second is the testimony of a woman whipped on the Sabbath morning by her so-called Christian master, even as he prepared to preach. The third tells of a licensed Methodist preacher, a man of God, who was himself placed for sale in the Louisville jail, preaching the gospel even while awaiting to be sold down the river. These voices come to us from the record, not as accusation but as memory, so that we remember what kind of spirit can dwell behind respectability and what truth cries out from the oppressed. May their words speak again. A runaway slave in 1841 assigned the following as his reason for not communing with the church to which he belonged at the South. The church, said he, had silver for the administration of the Lord's Supper to procure, which they sold my brother, and I could not bear the feeling it produced to go forward and receive the sacrament from the vessels which were the purchase of my brother's blood. A slaveholder whipping his bitch on Sabbath morning preparatory to preaching, March 28th. 1843, in a public address at Cincinnati, the Reverend Edward Smith, true Wesleyan of Pittsburgh, stated that he had lived in slave states 32 years. And speaking of a certain D.D. of his acquaintance, he adds, he was a slaveholder and a severe one too, and often, with his own words, he applied the cowhide to the naked backs of his slaves. On one occasion, a woman that served in his house committed on Sabbath morning an offense of too great magnitude to go unpunished until Monday morning. The doctor took his woman into the cellar and, as is usual in such cases, stripped her from her waist up and then applied the lash. The woman writhed and winced with each stroke and cried, "O Lord, O Lord, O Lord," selling ministers as slaves. At the Great Convention at Cincinnati in June 1845, Mr. Needham of Louisville, Kentucky, once again said, "Sir, in 1844, a Methodist preacher with regular license and certificate was placed in the Louisville jail as a slave on sale. He preached in the jail sermons which would have done credit to any quote-unquote white preacher of the town. He kept a little memorandum in his pocket in which he marked the number of persons hopefully converted under his preaching. I represented his case to leading Methodists in Louisville and showed them a copy of his papers which I had taken. None of them visited him in his prison. He said he forgave those who imprisoned him and was about to sell him. He was sold down the river, which was the last time I saw him." Supporting churches by slave jobbing. The Reverend J. Cable of Indiana, May 20th, 1846, in a letter to the Mercer Luminary, says, and we'll go on down, it says, "The college church which I attended and theological seminary held slaves enough to pay their pastors. The slaves who had been left to the church had increased so as to be a large and still increasing fund. These were hired out on Christmas Day of each year, the day of which they celebrate the birth of our blessed Savior, to the highest bidder. These worked hard the whole year to pay the pastor his 1,000 notes a year." What a shivering, cold spirit indeed, which lets me know that God does not exist within that temple. God does not exist within that temple. And any Christians who listen to this and they say, well, those was those times and it's better now. No, from a rotten seed comes a rotten apple. I hope you enjoyed the reading. I leave you in love and peace.